thank you for joining. We really appreciate your time and connecting today. Hold on tight because over the next half an hour, we're going to show you just how Dr Migrate, Microsoft and Intel have joined forces to help organizations around the world accelerate their move to Azure. And the good news is you don't need an army of consultants or BAs drowning in spreadsheets to work out how to get there. I'm Andy Lyons, CTO for Dr Migrate, and with me today is Kevin Johnson from Intel and Paul Leibeneck from Microsoft. Probably the best way to start is just to give you a really good context of the problem that we're solving and that a lot of customers face and exactly how we are overcoming that. The traditional approach is, I was kind of being cheeky earlier on when I said, you can drown in spreadsheets because you literally can, and the data gets old really, really quickly because, as soon as something changes, someone's needing to update a spreadsheet and that doesn't happen after too long. And there's typically lots of people and lots of effort. And that's where we said, hey, we can do something smarter, faster, less effort, better value. And that's where a data-driven approach come in with Dr Migrate. And what Dr Migrate's doing is rather than relying on people, it's relying on machine learning, data and AI, essentially, contemporary modern services that are available today to do this large crunching and processing of information and insights to make that really easy for customers, partners, your IT providers to be able to consume an action. So the way that it actually works is Microsoft have their own Azure Migrate appliance. That gets installed into your data center and it runs in agentless data collection mode, right? So you don't have to install agents onto every server on your on-premise environment, which is fantastic. Then what it does is it securely sends the metadata associated to your servers into your own Azure tenant. So an Azure tenant just gets simply set up and the data gets sent into there. So the good news is data doesn't need to leave your own network boundary, so to speak, right? So it's not going to Dr Migrate SaaS land or outside into some other entity. And then what happens with that is we have Dr Migrate that Microsoft through the assessment solution program will assist you to get configured. And that's available in the Azure Marketplace, right? So just like a PaaS service, it's a next, click deploy. And what it does is it goes to work and does all the processing of the data that is being collected of your on-premise estate. And then literally within hours, it's bringing to life insights that would have taken, teams and teams of people to do over a much longer period, right? And the cool thing is this data is also live. So as your environment, your network communications, your peaks and troughs, you're migrating all the way through from assess to that, that final migration cutover. Anything that changes in your environment, the data model is learning from that and presenting back those live insights for you. Then the way that it all comes together is Dr Migrate has two parts to it. One is the user portal, and that user portal is where yourself and your partners have full access to be able to control the assessment, planning, and migration from this central location. And we're going to have a look at that today. And then you've got the reporting suite. And as I've been mentioning, accessing to rich insights, everything from your overviews, down to network rules, down to right sizing, down to wave planning, you name it. We're going to take a look at it in just a moment. So we're going to start by exploring. You can see here in this particular environment that we're going to take a look at, this is actually an anonymized customer, right? So that there's nothing specific, but the environment we're looking at is a real environment, which is in the retail industry. We can see here that Dr Migrate has already processed over 16 million different data points in order to be able to bring this together. So as we go into explore, the first thing we're going to see here is this particular customer's drivers, or let's just say your drivers, right? So what we don't want to do is just start with, hey, here's lots of insights. It's we aim to understand what is it that's important to you moving to the cloud. Is it your ability to be able to access new cloud services, your end of life, you concerned about end of life software? Is it consolidating IT tools? So it's being able to understand that through a simple Q&A in our user portal, but then that feeds into the data model to help drive and bubble up key insights that might be of interest for you. There's a number of things in Dr. M. From the left, we've got our executive summary, which is intended for exactly that. And we'll have a bit of a drive through here in a moment to see that, intended for your C-suite to really get a quick grasp of your environment. Discovery is where we can deep dive into your entire digital estate. Modernize shows you all your different modernization scenarios. Planning and TCO speak for themselves in terms of the insights that they'll show us there. So let's start with the digital estate. So from here, what we can see is a really concise view. So in this particular environment, we've got over 57 applications that have been mapped across nearly 700 servers. We can see the breakdown of the different types of operating systems, the distribution from physical to virtual. We also get the ability to see really clearly what the utilization is as well. So we can see breakdowns from the number of cores that are being used to the RAM. We can see really clearly here it's very underutilized, especially in the core sense, right? And also in the RAM, only 19%. So really showing there's a lot of upsides in terms of right sizing. And then we look at things like readiness opportunities and so forth. But let's just move on and have a look at some of the insights. And bear in mind, executive summary, it's intended to start high, and then it's going to move in as we get to the discover phase. From here, we get an automated view of all the key technology running in your environment. Most of the time, you'll talk to your IT leads and architects what's running. There's a lot of hearsay and conjecture. Here, machine learning using signature software mapping will actually determine exactly what's in your environment. So if you were running MySQL or Oracle, that would actually light up to show the number of instances that are running. And as you can see for SQL, Java, IIS, and so forth running here. It'll also show you platform tools, like are you running an old Exchange server, Skype, and domain controllers, patching servers. All these insights are used to not just show you what you've got, but as you're going to see in modernization, it'll actually give you cloud alternatives. What can you be using instead of Exchange? What could you be using instead of a SQL traditional service? What we also do is break down your applications for you. So of your total apps, which ones are business critical apps? Which ones are IT tools? Which ones are COTS app? These are really important in the decision-making processes you're going to see throughout when you do an actual migration planning and assessment. We then help map you into your application strategies, because when you're figuring your move to the cloud, you need to figure out, look, what are we going to rehost? Like, are we going to migrate to the cloud? Are we going to keep some things on premise? Are we going to replace with more modern cloud services or SaaS services? So Dr Migrate's able to, via the user portal, identify workloads that you want to put into the particular strategies. And this all feeds all the way into our planning and our TCO as the flow and effect. We also help with sizing. So it's really important as you're planning your migration, and we're going to see a lot more of that in the wave planning section, we break up your applications into the respective sizes. And it's using machine learning, again, looking at hundreds or thousands of data points for every application to figure out the actual complexity of that particular app. And that's going to really feed into the wave planning to give you better and more accurate sense of how long things are actually going to take to migrate. But you can also see sustainability. It's a key thing that a lot of C-suite and organizations are interested in these days, that we also are able to provide straight out of the box as well.
Hey, just to jump in on that, Andy, and you touched on it, right? And to add emphasis, what is increasingly becoming a key initiative for CIOs across the world. Now, in 2020, Microsoft announced bold commitment and a detailed action plan to become carbon negative, zero waste company, water positive, that protects more land that it uses by 2030. And it says it on that slide there, which is great. So look, very much aligned to that. I love that we're able to show customers the positive benefit to the planet in the form of measuring a reduction of carbon emissions when migrating, modernizing from on-premise into the Microsoft cloud through Dr Migrate. It's really cool. Thanks, Andy.
Let's actually do a deep dive now. So if I go to the discovery section, what you can see here is your full end-to-end suite. So this is kind of like your flight center. What you can do here is select your application, and that could be any application in your environment, right? So if I just select any application, what it'll do is first of all bring up a whole heap of telemetry about it. The number of servers broke down by environment, its complexity, the modernization potential, optimization, blockers, and more, right? But then what you can do is every one of these different tabs allows you to deep dive into the components of that particular application, right? So we've chosen the Aspen app here. And by the way, we could also isolate that and just look at the servers that are related to the development environment, prod environment, or test environment, all environments equally as well, all with the click dynamically done. If we have a look at the app components, what it's doing here, it's first of all telling that Aspen is communicating with 14 other key applications split between IT tools and just line of business applications. It's showing us platform services that it's connected to, the different AD servers and SCCM patching servers. And it's also showing us key components that it's found on a per server, from Commvault agents to SQL Server to Java being installed, and breaking down the machines that that's actually deployed onto. But what we can do from here is we go to servers. Then what we can see is all the servers in detail that are associated with the Aspen application, right? So I can see the particular servers, their individual usage, which ones are out of support, which ones are nearing out of support, their overall utilization. And as we step through, some key things, shows us the exact VMs that are ready for migration, no blockers moving to Azure, ones that might have conditions. If they do have conditions, calls them out, we can deep dive into. Also shows us utilization details, right? Being able to see which VM is using the most cores, which is the most underutilized, overutilized, highest IOPS. Or with a click, it just dynamically filters for you as well. And again, it's real-time data. We've also got end of support. This is an important one as well, which we're able to break down and show exactly which operating systems are out of support, nearing end of support as well in a really clear way.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Andy, so as you mentioned, super important. So Windows Server end-of-life deadline is October 2023, as it says on the slide. And SQL Server 2012 has reached that stage already in July. So after those dates, just to emphasize that software will stop receiving regular patches and critical security updates. So whether you're looking at upgrading or acquiring extended security updates, planning for that can take time. So the visibility here is great, right? So for those that aren't aware, extended security updates is effectively a license which allows you to keep receiving critical security updates for up to 3 years. The great news is, if you're not aware, if you choose to migrate those systems to Azure, you'll receive those updates for free.
Yeah, perfect. And that is a huge value prop for a lot of customers who are running on some aging workloads, obviously, over time as they've organically been growing their business. Look, breakdowns of operating systems and also individual servers as well. So you can select an individual server associated to this application, and it will show you everything from the NICs, the storage, migration blockers. You can search for software that's running on it, drill down into network telemetry for that VM and more, right? So all just, again, given to you on a silver platter, so to speak, for your environment for that particular app. But look, some of the other key things that we'll drill through into here, if I go to the networking section for this application, I get detailed overviews, really clear breakdowns of, what applications is the Aspen app talking to. And I can see exactly the other applications that it's talking to, broken down to the VM, broken down to the IP address. There's lots of advanced views that you can drill into, filtering by port, excluding platform tools into the views, detailed network maps, all the way through to firewall exports, right? So what are the different firewall rules that are associated to the particular application or an environment, all automatically curated in here, which you can export as well, right? So not just for assessment, really helping you with that full migration journey that we're all aware of, really needs access to these smarts. Beyond that, if your application's running databases, it'll show all the databases that are running on there, what it's found, if it's in support, out of support, as we mentioned. And it's not just doing SQL, it's doing Postgres, Oracle. It'll detect any type of databases and lay that out. It's just relevant to the particular application I've got filtered at the moment. It'll also show you modernization, like which SQL databases can be modernized to a PaaS service, right? So you can move from a SQL standalone running on a server 2012, you could move that and many other versions to SQL Managed Instance, a PaaS version. So it'll show you ones that are high touch, low touch, allow you to deep dive into the individual databases if need be, and also show you consolidation scenarios. Like you could go from 31 servers for the Aspen application down to 0, running on pure PaaS, and showing you what those saving benefits are in different scenarios as well. Now, our Modernization Insights gives us a programmatic look of exactly what opportunities we have for the particular application. So we can see here that Aspen is running instances of Java and SQL Server, all of which have got modernization opportunities that you can run in Azure, like equivalent PaaS services. So if you didn't know, you can actually run a Java app on an Azure App Service plan. You could even run it in a container or an Azure function. And as I was mentioning before with SQL Server, running it on SQL databases and managed instances. The other cool thing is too, you can right click, drill through, and it'll show you the exact servers that are running it. It'll also show you key benefits and architecture links and guides to going from Java to App Service Plan. And you can do that for any technology that Dr. M detects to be able to find out more about that as well. And it'll also show you IT tools like platform tools. It's detected, Azure Backup, better said, Commvault and Zabbix from different tooling and showing you what the modernization options there, because a lot of your legacy IT tools, Microsoft have done an awesome job to completely, hands-free management, doing that via the equivalent of PaaS alternatives as well for you. So Dr. M's also bubbling up those insights. On the topic of insights, we have a dedicated advisor section. So for your particular application, what Dr. Migrate's doing here is bubbling up a whole heap of advisories from, things that we found out about your application that your migration engineers might want to know about, from servers with a very high number of network connections that are going to really impact the way you do your firewall management and your cloud network configuration, to showing different types of traffic, high disk space, high IOPS. So it's essentially looking at every machine and looking for certain profiles and patterns to being able to call out. And you can simply click on the particular call out or insight and it will show you the server. And again, if you wanted, you could drill through into that particular server to find out more. But the other interesting thing here is the complexity advisor. Dr. M is looking at every single application and categorizing it for you. And it's showing you the complete radar based off the number of servers, environments, if it had blockers, a whole heap of data points, and shows you what was the reason for actually driving it to a particular level of complexity. So you've got that full transparency as well. So we'll jump into optimization. Now, this is a really important one. Now, I love this because this is where a lot of the key challenges for customers is often, critical workloads, maintaining performance, or obviously cost. How